If you're planning to study in Germany, one of the biggest decisions you have to make is not just which university you choose, but which city you choose. And the city will decide how much rent you pay, how lonely or connected you feel, how easy it is to find a student job, and even how realistic it is to stay in Germany after graduation. So in this video, I want to give you a very clear, honest overview on which German cities are actually good for students. Let's start with the global hubs. These are the famous names you already know, Munich and Berlin. In the QS Best Student Cities ranking for 2026, Munich is ranked number 4 in the world and Berlin is number 7. So on paper, they look like absolute dream destinations for students. And to be fair, they're amazing in many ways. Munich has top universities like the TU Munich and LMU, a very strong economy and a quality of life that is objectively high. I'm currently living in Munich myself and it's my personal favorite. Berlin also has a huge international community and a big startup scene, and also a very open culture where almost every type of person can find their place. But here's where the first big pain point comes in. Both Munich and Berlin are expensive and very competitive when it comes to housing. In Munich, the graduate school of TUM itself tells students to expect 1,300 to 2,000 euros per month for living costs as a single person, and a big chunk of that money goes to rent. A room in a shared flat can easily go above 600 or 700 euros, and finding a place is a nightmare if you start late. You know, students apply to hundreds of ads on WG gesucht, they get ghosted, or they get hit by scams where fake landlords ask for deposits up front. And emotionally, this is extremely stressful, especially if you're arriving from abroad and you feel pressure to find something in 1 or 2 weeks. On the other hand, Munich rewards you with very strong career options in engineering, IT, finance and consulting. So if you can afford it, it is more of a career investment city. Now Berlin is a bit different in vibe, but very similar in pressure. You know, a few years ago Berlin had this reputation of being the cheap and creative city, but that time is basically over. You know, rents have increased a lot in recent years, and Germany as a whole has seen rents go up by several percent per year, which hits big cities especially hard. And shared flat rooms in central areas of Berlin are no longer cheap, and student dorm spots are extremely limited. And on top of that, Berlin has its own special chaos. You know, getting appointments for your city registration, for your residence permit, for visa extensions, this can take ages. And mentally, it can be draining, especially if you are more introverted or sensitive to noise and chaos. But the upside is that Berlin is one of the most international cities in Germany. You can survive with English much longer compared to other places, and the city is very diverse and open. Munich and Berlin are top-tier cities if you have either a stable financial situation, a scholarship, or family support, and if you really want a big city experience and global name on your CV. If you're already stressed when you think about rent and if your blocked account is already tight, choosing these cities can create a constant money pressure that kills your student experience. And in that case, it is smarter to look at the second group of cities. And these are places like Cologne, Bonn, Stuttgart, Hamburg, Frankfurt and Aachen, and they are still significant cities with strong universities and industries, but they are slightly less extreme than Munich and Berlin in terms of image and pressure. You know, Cologne is a good example. It is a very friendly, social and open city with a big student population, a lot of media and business, and a famous carnival culture. You have the University of Cologne and several applied science universities. You know, rents are not cheap, but they're usually a bit lower than Munich and the vibe is less formal. And the city Bonn, just next to Cologne, is smaller and calmer, with many international organizations and a lot of greenery. It can be a good option if you want a safe and peaceful environment, but still want access to a big metropolitan region through the train system. Now Stuttgart is another important one. It is not the first city that international students think about, but for engineering, automotive and industry, it is extremely strong. Mercedes, Porsche, Bosch and many other companies are in this region, so the career perspective for engineers and tech students is very good. Now the downside is again cost of living. You know, Stuttgart is one of the most expensive cities in Germany, and I would say the general vibe is more work focused than student party city. If your plan is crystal clear that you want to work in automotive or mechanical engineering and you're okay with a more serious atmosphere, Stuttgart makes sense. And Hamburg and Frankfurt are especially interesting for business, economics and finance. Frankfurt is the financial center of Germany and home to many banks and financial institutions. And Hamburg is a big port city with strong media, trade and logistics. And in both cities you will find decent universities and a lot of professional opportunities. But again, the rents are quite high and the cities can feel more like business hubs than student towns. And they are good if you already think about internships in banking, consulting, logistics or trade. And you are okay with spending more on rent to be close to that environment. Now Aachen deserves a special mention in this tier, even though it's smaller than the cities I just mentioned. It is a classic engineering and tech city with RWTH Aachen as a major technical university. And the city is very student heavy and in general more affordable than Munich. If you want a focused technical environment without the Munich price level, Aachen is one of the best choices. Now let's move to the third tier, which I think is the most underrated group for international students. And these are the more affordable student strongholds, where your rent is lower, your life is calmer, and you can actually breathe. And think about cities like Leipzig, Dresden, Bochum, Essen, Magdeburg and Chemnitz. In many of these places, the rent level is lower than in Western big cities. And for students, that means you can sometimes find a room in a shared apartment for 300 to 400 euros instead of 600 or 700. And if you're really lucky, you can get student dorms for 200 euros per month. Yes, this is actually possible. Now Leipzig and Dresden are good examples. Both have strong universities, a nice cultural life, and are considered attractive student cities. And at the same time, rents for students in Leipzig in particular have also gone up in the last years, but they still remain below the levels of Munich or Frankfurt. And Dresden kind of manages to stay relatively affordable, and it's also a beautiful city with a lot of history and a more relaxed vibe. No matter which city you choose, your German language skills will decide how easy your life in Germany actually is. Housing, student jobs, internships and bureaucracy all get much easier once you speak the language. I made a separate video on the best way to learn German as a beginner, and for your convenience I put the link to it in the video description. But let's talk about the ultra affordable outliers like Chemnitz and Magdeburg. Chemnitz is considered one of the cheapest university cities in Germany, and a typical student flat can cost around 300 euros and a room in a shared apartment about 270 euros. It is also very similar in Magdeburg, and you're going to see prices which are unthinkable in Munich. But the trade-off is also very clear. You will have fewer part-time job opportunities, a smaller international community and less nightlife. But if you're on a very tight budget and you want to focus on your studies, these cities can be a strategic choice. You save money, you avoid the stress of extreme housing markets, and most importantly, you can always move to a bigger city later for your masters or your job. You don't have to choose the perfect city forever. In other videos on my channel, I talk more in detail about cost of living, part-time jobs and how to learn German. So next, check out this video. Love you and stay focused.